Welcome everyone, Marcelo is my name. I am the niche fragrance collector, and I've been enjoying this conversation on all things Pierre Guillaume. It's a brand that I've recently discovered. I had an opportunity to travel to Paris and go to the Pierre Guillaume boutique. I have said this before, I'll say it again. If you go to Paris, I think it should be like a requirement. You need to go to that boutique. You need to have a look at the range of fragrances that Pierre has created. They're really, really exceptional. Today, what I want to do is go into a little bit more detail, but across the wheel. For those who are familiar with the channel, you know that I like using the Michael Edwards fragrance wheel. If you know where you live on this wheel, whether you're a woody amber or dry woods, you can quickly identify the fragrance that's going to resonate with you as I begin to speak about. The other thing that I'm going to do is not really go into notes so much. And this is really, I'm taking a leaf out of Pierre's book. He doesn't focus a lot on the pyramid and how the notes, where they start, how they evolve. He shares some of the notes that he uses, but ultimately, he mentions that he wants you to feel what the fragrance is about. One thing that Pierre has said is that perfume is like an echo, and it's an echo of a person, a place, or a time that you've experienced. I resonate with this. For me, I always feel that perfume is an olfactory memory. If I've experienced a perfume in a particular location, the moment I smell that perfume again, it takes me back to that. So that's what Pierre wants you to focus on. I'm also going to show you this, and this gives you an indication of how I feel the fragrance evolves on my skin. This gives you an idea of how the perfume opens all the way through the dry down. And finally, an indication of if you like, then you're going to love. Let me start with this one. This is CUIR VENENUM. This is the second one that I sprayed when I was in the boutique. Julien, as he was walking me through the different fragrances there, he asked me, do I like orange blossom and do I like leather? I mean, I like both. I thought he was going to bring me two different fragrances. Instead, he showed me this one. Actually, I opened up, I've already sprayed it, but you know what? I'm going to spray again, excuse me, because I love the opening of this fragrance. Beautiful, just glorious. I've been wearing it today. I love the opening. This is vibrant orange blossom, but nectar-like, almost honey-like. I have a range of orange blossom fragrances, but nothing like this. I almost feel like if I'm wearing this, and I walk past a beehive, I'm gonna get bees coming all around me, trying to find where exactly is this orange blossom nectar that they're smelling in the air. I was drawn by the story behind this fragrance. Julien explained to me that Pierre was at a fashion show and that he was, now this is the after party, one of the models that he was talking to, obviously a beautiful woman, and she took off her leather jacket, and he said that in that moment he smelled a mixture of her, I guess, her musk, her, she'd been working, and so her own skin radiated some kind of scent, mixed in with an orange blossom oil and the leather. And all three of these, it just created this spark in his mind. And he's like, I need to recreate that fragrance. And that component, all those things that I just shared there, which is musky, animalic, but orange blossom mixed in with a leather suede, is exactly how this fragrance is in a nutshell. The fragrance opens up with this wonderful sweet orange blossom nectar scent profile to it. It migrates to this wonderful floral, but animalic, a little bit of sass in there. Finally, when it dries down, it goes to the suede leather orange blossom tinged scent profile. It is beautiful. It is so diverse. It has equal parts of this indolic orange blossom, but with that slight sassy animalic component to it. It doesn't get away from itself. It's funny, I have a number of leather fragrances. I'm a big fan of all things Memo, and they have the beautiful CUIR Nomad range. However, nothing like this. To say that every fragrance is sensual and sexy and all that, then everything becomes the same thing. However, this is, it's almost like it's sexually charged. I know it's a weird thing to say, how do you get it? But it does. I think it's because that the Moorish component of that honeyed orange blossom and yet that leathery animalic component coming together, it creates a certain level of attraction. We understand that fragrances are unisex. My wife and I, we both share a number of different fragrances. She has a few, she's the white floral queen. She has a few that are hers. I won't touch them. But there are a few that it's like we arm wrestle for them. And CUIR VENENUM is one of those where she's trying to wrestle this away from me. I am working very hard to keep this as part of me because I don't want to, if I smell something, and I'll talk about that in just a second, it makes me think of Sandra and it makes me think of my wife. So this one here, I love wearing it. I know that Sandra's enjoying wearing it, but I want to keep this as my fragrance. I feel for me, the longevity on this fragrance is 7+ hours. The sillage on this is spectacular. It's a beautiful moderate, and its projection is also moderate. I'm wearing this, people are detecting it, in particular, Sandra. And actually, when I'm wearing it, she instantly goes, oh, I need to steal that from you. Come on. All right, let me move on to the next one. For those who may have missed the early production that I created on the collection and how they work, the numbered fragrances, there's a rhythm to them. And the idea behind it that each number represents either a fragrance note or a family. In this case here, number 13, is dedicated to rose. This is 13.1, La Nymphe et le Poète. And the idea behind it is that it is now another expression on rose. When I first experienced this fragrance, again, another one that I'm like, boom, I'm in love. I love all things rose. I know some men are somewhat reluctant when it comes to having too many florals in their fragrances, in particular rose. Sandra, my wife, doesn't like rose in her fragrance. I was wearing it earlier. I'm about to surprise you. Sandra loves this fragrance. How is that possible? She doesn't like rose. If you're a little bit reluctant when it comes to that rose note, some people might feel that it's a little bit old-fashioned, something that your grandmother would wear. For men, it's like, well, rose, it's, you know, it's a flower, so therefore it's a fragrance for a woman. I'll challenge all of that. This fragrance here, it's a sublime rose. So it's not overtly rose. I do love rose in my fragrance, as I mentioned. I have radical rose, but radical rose has a very distinct rose note. Whereas here, it's tinged with other elements to it. What I get from here is this beautiful, gentle rose. It does have some spiciness into it. It does have some fruity components there, but it's the green notes that really accentuate. To define this rose as it opens up for me, it's this beautiful fruity rose. It then is followed by a spicy green floral component. And finally, when it settles down, it is a floral bouquet, but tinged with a rose. It does use a rose tea-like element to it. For those who are familiar with like a black tea that has rose petals in it, there is that equal balance between the herbal green components from the tea, but also that rose. And this fragrance does it really well. There's more to it. It's more than just a rose tea kind of fragrance. There is a lightness to this fragrance to the point where it almost feels like a house with large windows, light coming through, a light breeze moving through the place. In my mind, its white curtains are moving. It has that airiness to it. Divine. Now, so is it a fragrance for a man or is it a fragrance for a woman? I mean, instantly you think rose, bomb, fragrance for a woman. So this is one that my son, mid-20s, loves tobacco, leathery kind of fragrances, is loving La Nymphe et le Poète. And I think it's that green, spicy, slight floral rose component that he's enjoying. Even though it has this lightness to it, the fragrance has awesome projection, great longevity. I'm getting at least 6 hours from it. Projection is moderate, and also its sillage is moderate. When Sandra is wearing it, I am detecting. The other day, I came into the house, she had gone, and actually maybe I'm picturing my own house because we have very large windows all around. One of the windows was open, there was a breeze coming through, and I could smell in the air, La Nymphe et le Poète. Awesome fragrance. Easy, masculine, feminine, for those who like florals. Not overtly rose, but wonderful bouquet. Number 10.1, Bouquet MASSAI. This is now a floral amber. And interestingly, I can wear this one here, which is graded as a floral fragrance. I can't wear this one here. And not because I can't wear it, of course I can wear whatever I want, but as I mentioned earlier, my wife is the white floral queen, and this one here, I feel really accentuates those white floral notes. One of the key notes in the fragrance is peony and also magnolia. For me, that is Sandra. It's just Sandra with capital letters. I sprayed earlier, I'm on the dry down. It's a lot more animalic, and I think it has maybe some of that magnolia animalic components to it. 10.1, Bouquet MASSAI, 10. And I'm gonna come to you, or I'm gonna explain, actually, sorry, 10. I'm gonna explain to you what the difference is. These are, in my opinion, awesome fragrances for a man or a woman. Sandra wears this, I wear this. We smell amazing as a duet when we go out. But let me spray this guy. This one here. Being that it's a floral amber, it does have those ambery notes once it dries down, a little bit more on the warmth in the fragrance. But on opening, this is Sandra. On the opening, that white floral, that peony, the bouquet of florals that just emerges is spectacular. Beautiful on a woman's skin. As I said, overtly floral fragrances I have a hard time with. I find, and again, because Sandra loves wearing those white floral fragrances, I instantly put that into a feminine category. I find that the evolution on this fragrance is really spectacular. It starts off just wonderfully floral, so it has this beautiful white floral bouquet opening. It does go into this, as it begins to dry down, it does have this floral caramel nuance. There's a sweetness in there that I'm not really sure where it's coming from, but I am detecting caramel-like sweetness to the actual fragrance. Finally, on the dry down, it does go to a floral, animalic, woody kind of scent. When I spray, or prior to spraying just before, I was getting that, and I think it's that magnolia that's in the fragrance. It does create that slight animalic component to it. When Sandra's wearing this, I'm detecting this comfortably 5 to 6 hours in. I feel that the sillage on this fragrance is moderate. I can smell it very cleanly. And I also find that the projection is also in the moderate. Recently, as a family, we had a long weekend. Both my daughter and Sandra were wearing the same fragrance. And I honestly think this is really on a woman's skin that has this wonderful femininity component to it. But those ambery notes, the warm caramel components to it, that slight animalic touch to it, creates quite a beautiful combination. Again, the girls were ahead of me, and the sillage that it was, I was getting a double hit of sillage. Glorious fragrance. Wonderful as a going out. I feel like it is more of an ambery, cooler weather fragrance. I would say that in warmer weather would be wonderful as an evening fragrance. Could a man wear it? Short answer would be yes. You wear what you like. Could this man wear it? No, the florals, that peony, that white floral component, it's a little bit too high for me. And to my mind, it's more female leaning than anything else. If you love soft amber, CUIR is one that you have to, and I'm saying stop everything right now, you have to test this one out. It's a beautiful blend of vanilla and this salty aquatic component to it. Now, you would think to yourself, how do those two things work? I mean, most aquatic fragrances have like a lemon or a brightness to it. How would a gourmand note like vanilla work in that fragrance? It works like nothing else. This is a fragrance that will make you fall in love. For those who have missed the episode that I created on CUIR, you can have a look here. I went into much more detail as to how this fragrance evolves, what is the magic behind it. This works comfortably as a summer, comfortably as a winter fragrance. And this one for me, as the name would suggest, CUIR means a long overhaul or a long flight, transports me to a distant land, in particular Fiji in this case here. Glorious fragrance, big recommendation. Let me share a little bit about Pierre. I've been trying to understand why have I become so obsessive when it comes to Pierre Guillaume's fragrances. Yes, they're incredible fragrances. I do love their scent profile, how they make me feel, how they project, how other people respond when they smell these fragrances on me. I love the fact that the owner is the perfumer. Why is that? It's because when I come across a perfume, it's this individual's creation. The other thing that I discovered about Pierre Guillaume is that he has his own production facility. He creates his own fragrances. And I'll go one more. And this is the one, when I read this, I'm like, what? So I recently had an opportunity to visit with Luca Maffei at Atelier Fragranze Milano, and he showed me that every morning they select the different raw ingredients, place it on a bay, then the person operating begins to scan, make sure that all these ingredients here correlate with whatever the recipe is for that particular fragrance. Pierre, in his own production facility, handpicks his ingredients to go into the creation of a perfume, and then allows his team to go ahead and produce that. When I read that, I thought to myself, one, the level of passion. I'm like, and actually, I'm gonna go one more. One day, I would love to film alongside Pierre. I'm gonna question him on this and find out, is this the actual case, that he actually hand selects, hand picks ingredients for that perfume to be created. He wants to say that this is his perfume, from creation, idea, all the way to creation in the bottle. I think this is why I'm a little bit obsessive when it comes to Pierre Guillaume and wanting to discover more and more. Let me move on to amber. I mentioned before that if you know where you like to live when it comes to your fragrance choices or fragrance families, then you can quickly identify that. Notice I've got 2 fragrances here. I'm a big ambery kind of guy. I mean, in the old days, it used to be called Orientals. I have a huge collection of fragrances in that category. This one here is une MADONE. I did do an episode on this. Have a look at this particular video. I mean, have a look at this art. I mean, the art alone should pique your interest. This is divine. This is an incredible fragrance. It has this lactonic, ambery, cardamom, sandalwood, draws you in. And the sillage on this is eternal. If you like ambery fragrances, or if you like those oriental notes, have a look at that particular fragrance. You're gonna love it. But I wanna talk about TONKA BODYKON. This is the sexiest. I sprayed earlier. I already detected it. Beautiful. This is just, the name is TONKA BODYKON. So TONKA as in tonka bean, BODYKON, I'm interpreting that as body contouring, so it just becomes a part of you, a second skin to you. It's ambery, it's warm, it's seductive. The opening is just divine, pure magic, as I love to say. It has this wonderful boozy, apple brandy-like component to it. That brandy rum note goes all the way through the fragrance. It goes into this, also this vanilla, has this sweetness in there. When I was in the boutique, I love that Julien explained this. He said it so deliberately. Aphrodisiac. He just, and plus with his beautiful French accent, I don't know, and it sort of elongated the word. Have a look at the video on the boutique. I love hearing him say that word. But it is, I would say that if you were going on a date, this is a beautiful date night fragrance. This is a very intimate, a very sensual, amorous style of fragrance. This is something that I would say that if you were on a first date and things are going well, the person would just come in close, they smell this, and yeah, things will lead to things, and which will lead to other things. One thing that I do love, it has a pistachio note in the fragrance. And I remember at the time, as it was drying down on my skin, I said to Julien, I'm detecting some kind of bitterness or some sort of nuttiness. And again, with this light smile, he said to me, pistachio. It has a pistachio note. And that pistachio note does give it a slight bitterness to the fragrance. But it's that bitterness that actually lends, it gives it a mystery. It's because if everything is sweet and ambery and warm, it becomes a little bit maybe too much, overtly over the top, too gourmand. Whereas that pistachio cuts it back a little, just brings it down. I feel that for me, the fragrance opens up in this wonderful boozy apple component to it. It does go to this wonderful bitter warmth component, this beautiful balance between this slight bitter note, but then this warm ambery component dries down into a wonderful vanilla ambery fragrance. As I mentioned, on skin, glorious. 5 to 6 hours, easy. Projection is moderate, but it does come down to a low. I think it's designed to be that. Wonderfully seductive. If you love ambery fragrances, this is one that'll hit the mark. Let me move on. As you can see, I'm very much into the ambery style fragrances. I love the warmth. I do love the diversity of them. This is now AOMASSAI, and this is number 10 to the 10.1, which is, as I was saying before, the silhouette of these two. They work wonderfully together. I found that this one here, AOMASSAI, is a lot more masculine in its presence. This one here, and look at that, oh my. Beautiful. So I was drawn to this because I love coffee in a fragrance. I'm drawn to the smell of roasting coffee, either the raw ingredient or the actual finished product. Just that smell is very Moorish to me. I love this fragrance from its beginning all the way to the end. Wonderful brown sugar, spicy coffee note that begins to emerge as soon as you spray. It moves across into this roasted hazelnut woody component to it, finally dries down to this wonderful earthy wood-like scent. Never losing that coffee. That coffee note seems to sort of go all the way across, but that sweetness that you experience in the beginning does come off. Now, again, Pierre doesn't reveal notes. I feel that there's like a patchouli earthiness in the base, and I think maybe this is, I'm a patchouli fiend. I love the scent of the patchouli. Is there patchouli in here? I don't know, but I do get like an earthy, just that wonderful mustiness from the patchouli, that woody component of it. For me, the opening of this thing is just pure seduction. 2 seconds to fall in love with this. This has become a super big hitter with the boys of my family. Myself and my 2 sons, we're all enjoying the AOMASSAI. And I mentioned before, we tried the bouquet thinking that it would be, have some of those elements. The floral bouquet in there does lean a lot more feminine. So boys are loving this, the girls are loving this. And together, as I mentioned, wonderful silhouette of one another. I find that the longevity on this fragrance is 7 hours minimum. I'm getting moderate to low sillage on this. Starts off, beautiful push, it does come back. And I find that its projection is in a similar vein, moderate to a low. Wonderful as a winter fragrance, awesome as a going out or a date night fragrance. I know that there are a number of people who are reluctant with all things gourmand. I mean, why would you want to wear a perfume of something that you're eating? You know, why do you want to smell like a pastry shop? I can tell you a million reasons why. If you're like a little bit reluctant to have a fragrance that you can eat, I would recommend to you AOMASSAI. I find that the coffee note, and look, when you smell coffee, it does have a woody component to it. So I feel like the coffee note in here doesn't get too gourmand in its fragrance profile. Those woody notes that are deeper in the fragrance do take shape. That sweetness that you're first experiencing with that brown sugar or that caramel sort of sensation does come back. It does settle down into a much more woody, but there are those sweet notes in there. So it is a beautiful balance between being a gourmand fragrance and also being a wood-like fragrance, but it's done in a very sublime way. Just a beautiful harmony of these particular notes. Big recommendation. The last one is in the woods category. I am a big fan of all things woods, and I tend to find that men in general love woody style fragrances. Monsieur is a wonderful example of a beautiful masculine fragrance. I don't believe there are any floral notes in here. There's a number of key notes that are used in masculine fragrances such as vetiver, patchouli, cedarwood. There is also a papyrus note, and that papyrus note gives it this wonderful dusty wood-like component to it. It's magic. For those who haven't seen the episode, I'm going to show it to you again. So have a look at this episode. I covered 4 of these fragrances. I wanted to put them here so that you can see how it goes across the wheel. If you do like woods, then Monsieur is spectacular. I compared it to James Bond. So if you can picture James Bond, I'm going to say the man is definitely wearing Monsieur whenever he goes to the casino. Boom, there you have it, the Pierre Guillaume across the wheel. Now, I barely even scratched the surface on the amount of fragrances that Pierre Guillaume has in the library. If you jump on his website, you can see that he has this awesome sample set of his full collection. I mean, you can buy a smaller set depending on your budget, but if you get the full sample set, one, you'll have the full collection and have a chance to experience how diverse, how unique, how amazing each of these fragrances are. Then, when something resonates, when you are in Paris next, you have to, promise me, Scout's honor, that you will go to the Pierre Guillaume boutique, have a look at the collection there. Hopefully Julien is there because the man is awesome and he'll be able to walk you through all the different aspects of how these fragrances work. Hope you enjoyed that. I'd love to hear what your recommendations are when it comes to all things Pierre Guillaume. I have that set, and so I am testing. I'm getting some recommendations from subscribers, and I'm already testing, ready for my trip to Paris. Thanks everyone. We'll see you guys all on the next episode.